Looks like everyone is in. Looks like we've gotten our technology to work. So I am going, there's, Holly, it looks like there's one more person that needs to be admitted. I think we have, okay, good. It looks like we have everyone that was Zooming in, that was sitting in the waiting room has been admitted. So it's 5:30, so I'll go ahead and start off the meeting. I'll introduce myself and everyone in a second, but I did want to just take a few moments to welcome everyone to our Eastmark neighborhood Zoom meeting. I've spoken to many of you, I've received many emails, and I just wanted to say on behalf of our team that we really appreciate you taking the time and the interest to communicate with us, not only through email and through phone calls, but also to come to this meeting. It's very helpful for us to really understand what your thoughts and opinions are. And so I just wanted to say that from the get-go. Also too, I just wanted to cover a few things. We are recording this meeting, and we will likely submit this recording as part of our citizen participation plan. So it'll be available for review. Everyone that has been admitted to the meeting, I believe we have about 100 people participating. Everyone is silenced. Whoops, I've got an instruction here. Everyone has been silenced, and there's no video on for people that have Zoomed in. And the way we want to handle the questions is there's the chat feature at the bottom of the Zoom, and if you can submit your questions and comments through the chat area, then we have one of our team members is going to be keeping track of all the comments. And then when we get to the end of the presentation, we'll go ahead and go through and answer those questions. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood kind of how we were going to run the meeting for orderly sake. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start the presentation right now. I have, oops, Eric. There, oops, there we go. Sorry about that. Got a little bit too. Okay. All right. Before we sort of launch into our explanations, and I think this meeting probably will take at least an hour. I just wanted to kind of go over what we're going to be covering. First, I'm going to do some introductions so you know who we all are, and then just do a very quick overview of the requests. And then what we wanted to do is sort of step back and give you a little bit of background of some of the history in Eastmark, and some just relevant pieces of information that we think would be interesting for you to know. And then what we wanted to do is just give you a little bit of a backgrounder and explanation of how our zoning entitlements work, because we think if you understand how they work, some of your questions probably will be answered, and some of the explanations will probably make more sense. So after we do that, then I wanted to go through each one of the requests and really give you an overview of what each one of the individual requests really is, so you understand it. And then we'll review the schedule and timeline, and then we'll get to Q&As. So with that, I'll go ahead and start off with introductions. My name is Jill Haggard. I was the name on the letter that you received. I am a Senior Vice President with D&B Associates. I have worked on this project since the very inception of the project. When we first started doing due diligence on the site, I was involved in that effort. And then working with other members of our team, I oversaw the initial entitlements that really go back to 2006 and 2007 and 2008. I've been fortunate enough to work on this project the entire time, from the very, very beginning till today. So I have sort of deep knowledge about the project. We have partnered with Brookfield Residential on this project. And so I would like to introduce to you the team members from Brookfield that are here. The first team member, and I haven't seen him yet, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce him because he's very important to Eastmark. It's D. McDonald. He is the general manager for the project. He has been on the project almost since day one. He came in not quite at day one, but maybe like 5 minutes into the project. So he's also really overseen the development of the project and has worked on really every detail of it. Then we have Eric Toon, who is vice president with Brookfield, and Eric, he oversees all the development aspects of it, of the project, the infrastructure development. And then working with him is Christina, Christian, and Holly, Holly Cree. They also help Eric with the development of the infrastructure on the project. So then also too, I would like to introduce Karen Taylor Robeson. She is a former DMB employee. I've worked with Karen for many, many years. We both worked on the Eastmark project really from the inception. She and I together did the entitlements for the project. And while she's no longer with DMB, she's president of a company called Arizona Strategies. She is intimately familiar with the project and everything that has gone on in the project. She has also been very much heavily involved with economic development efforts in the valley, but also in trying to encourage economic development on the Eastmark property itself. So she's with us today as well. And then I did want to mention for your information that we do have a representative from the City of Mesa Planning Department here today, Tom Ellsworth. He is sitting in, watching the meeting and getting an idea of the comments that you will all have. So with that, I just want to make sure that you know who our team is. So I will move on to the presentation. So the first thing that we wanted to do is just immediately address one issue that has come up from several people that I've talked to and several of the emails that I've received, and it pertains to the disc golf course. And we wanted to just sort of at the onset just address the fact that the disc golf course is going to happen. I think there was some concern that we were not doing the disc golf course, and you probably may or may not have noticed the fence that has gone up in the area north of the housing. And that is the construction fence that will be used to secure the development of the golf course while it's going on. We call that the phase one of the linear open space area. And we anticipate that facility is going to be completed by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So wanted to just from the onset, just get that out and make sure everyone knows that the disc golf course is happening. So with that, I'm going to launch into sort of our explanation. So from the letter, if you read through the letter, it articulates what we are requesting, and we're requesting 5 things, and I've got them articulated on this slide. We're requesting a major amendment to our community plan, and we're requesting the approval of 4 development unit plans. A development unit plan for DU1, a modification to the development unit plan for DU2, and 2 new DUPs for the areas that we call DU5-6 or 5 North and DU6 South. So, okay, I said a lot of words that you may or may not even know what I'm talking about, because the use of the terminology DUP, DUs, I mean, that's terminology that we throw around. And what we really want to do is explain that to you so you really understand what all that means. But before we do that, we wanted to just give you a little bit of background and history on Eastmark. And this map shows the location of the Mesa Proving Grounds, and I love this map. This is a map that is actually taken out of our original entitlement materials from dating back really to 2006. And as you can see on this aerial map, this was, before any development occurred. You can see the racetracks of the General Motors Proving Grounds, and you can see really the lack of development that has occurred in the area. The 51 freeway didn't exist at the time. So this is just really a good exhibit because really it does depict really how much growth and development has occurred, not only in Eastmark, but in the surrounding area in general. All right, oops. Okay, sorry about that. There's a little bit of a delay when I push that. So just to get into some of the Eastmark history, as I mentioned, we purchased the property in 2006, and then we partnered with Brookfield in around 2014. And originally DMB, we managed the project, but Brookfield now manages the project for us. Our entitlements, they were intended to be flexible. It was a very unique feature of the community plan, and it was approved in 2008. And overall, it allows for us to develop a maximum of 15,000 dwelling units and 20 million square feet of non-residential. The vision for our community was we really wanted to create a community that allowed for a variety of uses, including employment and livable and intimate neighborhoods. And then I just want to point out too that our original vision, it has really changed and evolved over the years. And originally we actually had a significant amount of residential uses that came up to Elliott Road. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who is going to talk about some of that background history and some of the ways that the community has evolved over really the 14-year history of the project.
All right, thank you, Jill. And first off, I have to correct you. It's now 15 years that we have been working on this. And you know, we've heard some comments that we are straying from the original vision of Eastmark. Well, the original vision for Eastmark was to create a flexible entitlement construct that allows us to respond to the marketplace, which is exactly what we've done over time. Most notably, and some of you have pointed out that we had, you know, resort uses, the Gaylord Hotel, and Jill just pointed out we have residential uses, a lot of residential uses up along Elliott Road. You know, we got our original approvals in 2008. And then if any of you on the call, I presume some of you recall what happened to the economy in 2008 and just upended the convention and hospitality industry, and Gaylord unfortunately never happened. We were then fortunate, and we'll go through a timeline, a more detailed timeline a little later, but we were very fortunate when First Solar came along and wanted to have a significant investment here at Eastmark. First Solar eventually became Apple. But it was our entitlements that allowed us to move 4 million square feet of entitlement from the southern end of Eastmark up to Elliott Road. And so that really, that flexible zoning allowed for us to adapt to the market. And ultimately, you know, that inspired the creation of the Elliott Tech Corridor. And as Jill pointed out, I've been involved in this for a long time. In fact, I was in the meeting with other representatives of DMB, along with other developers along Elliott Road, with Councilman Thompson and City of Mesa officials, when the whole idea of the Elliott Road Tech Corridor was birthed. Subsequent to that, we, along with the city, made investments in Elliott Road to create this employment corridor. And so, you know, we've got Apple on one end, and then to the west of Eastmark, we have Google, you know, and we continue to work with the city on trying to attract other users to this area. And personally, I've been very involved, as Jill said, in many economic development efforts in the Valley, and working hard to bring some of these users to Mesa and to Eastmark specifically. We continue to be hopeful that we will have other commercial and employment users along Elliott Road, but it's the entitlements that we achieved back in 2008 that has allowed us to adapt over time.
Okay, there we go.
So subsequent to Apple becoming, the city then went ahead and did the overlay zone on the north side of Elliott Road, again to encourage and incentivize additional technology uses in this area. And as I mentioned, Mesa spent resources, and we spent resources on creating the technology corridor, and what you're seeing, just the improvements to the road, the marketing and the branding, so that when these users come to Phoenix, we have a place where they can focus on and look at. So we're very proud to have been a part of that. But it is, while it's not the Gaylord Hotel, we originally set out to have a community of regional significance, which included residential and employment uses. So that's where we are today.
And Karen, I think you sort of covered these bullet points in what you said. So I'll just keep going through these. This is a timeline that we've used previously, and I think it does a really good job of sort of, explaining kind of all the ups and downs and the twists and turns that have occurred really in the last 15 years as this project has evolved. Karen has mentioned several of them.
Yeah, and Jill, let me there's one more thing I should say, and this timeline points it out. If you want to go back to the timeline, you see in, First Solar, you see 2011, and, we and the city worked night and day to get that facility up and running. And then, of course, First Solar was never able to put their building into production. Then, it was 2 years later that GT Technologies came in, and they operated for a short time before they then went away, and Apple then occupied the building. Then you see in late 2013, the GCU announcement. We were way down the road with Grand Canyon University when their strategic plan changed, and they decided to focus all of their investments at their campus in Phoenix. So there's, we've been rowing the boat for a long time, working with a lot of different users, and we continue to do so. It's just, the way the market goes, oftentimes, or more often than not, the market does things that are completely outside our control. But, we are continuing to work with the city on trying to attract employment uses to the Elliott Road Tech Corridor.
Karen, one thing I wanted to I just noticed the comments coming through on the chat regarding, I guess, additional people trying to get in, and I just wanted to make sure that I saw that question in
Jill,
the chat.
I'm aware that we're capped. We're trying to get the capacity change to let everybody in, but we're capped at 100 people. So
Okay.
I'm trying to solve that problem right now. Apologies.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. I will keep going forward. Karen, I don't know if you want to go ahead and cover this slide while you're on a roll.
So once we all kind of recovered from the Great Recession of 2008, Eastmark was able to proceed with development. And to date, we have 7,317 residential units platted. Now, our entitlement is for 15,000 residential units. At this point, we only anticipate another 2,000 to 4,000 residential units. So even at maximum of 11,300, we're going to be far below what was originally entitled at Eastmark. Then you could just see here the numbers on the number of parks and the number of non-residential development that has occurred to date.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll go ahead and take it from here again. And again, wanted to use this opportunity to give a little bit of information and explanation as to what we're even talking about when we throw around community plan and DUP. So what is the community plan? The community plan is basically our zoning ordinance. It's this regulatory set of rules that dictate how development occurs for Eastmark. It's our zoning ordinance. We do not use the City of Mesa zoning ordinance. Part of our entitlements that we had approved back in 2008 was the approval of this document. And there's a few things. I'm seeing a comment here. Christine, I don't know if you're making progress.
On capacity, I am not.
Okay.
So we're doing what we can, but it'll be available the recording will be available for viewing. So
Okay.
We're gonna just have to be good with that for now.
Okay. All right, so I'll just continuing on. So the community plan is our zoning ordinance. It was intended to allow for the flexibility that Karen discussed in her comments. It does many things. It creates regulations and things such as setbacks, building heights, allowed uses, parking signs, that sort of things, the kind of things that you'd typically see in a zoning ordinance. And it also creates these land use groups or LUGs. So when we use that terminology, land use group or LUG, you could equate it to a zoning district. It is basically our equivalency of a zoning district, since we do not use the standard zoning districts that the city of Mesa has outlined in their zoning ordinance. So that's really what it is. The community plan does not identify specific locations for the zoning districts, but it identifies generally which ones you can use in which area. And you know, that's pretty consistent with how a city zoning ordinance works. The zoning ordinance is a document that discusses regulation, and you go through the zoning process to identify what zoning you're going to have on the property. Okay, the land use groups are selected at the time of a site plan approval or a plat. That is the time when the specific land use group or / zoning district, if you want to look at it that way, is selected. And I do want to point out and give a little shout out to the city of Mesa. They have a very good website in their planning department. If this is the information at the bottom, identifies how you get to the Eastmark entitlements. They basically have everything that you could want to know or see. They've got the community plan in there, identified by section, and then all of the development unit plans that have been approved are on there. Our development agreements are on there. Everything that is regulatory and relates to each is on site. So it's very available, and we actually use it all the time ourselves. Okay, so in the community plan, one of the things that it does is it creates this map that basically subdivides the entire Eastmark area, which is about 3,200 square feet, into 9 development units. So you can see on this map, each one of the 9 development units identified on here. And then in the community plan, in section 8, it also provides a very sort of brief, high-level, generalized description of what that particular development unit is supposed to be like. So those descriptions, you know, they were originally approved. We've amended them multiple times over the years, but those kind of help describe the type of development. And then the community plan. Mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is the plan that was approved back in 2008.
Yes, that is correct. And then the community plan also establishes a process for creating development unit plans and what it goes in them. So, and I'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to move quickly on to the next one. And there's a little bit of a delay when I push that button. Eric, can you advance that? Okay, thank you. So this map, we just talked about the development units, the 9 development units, or development units. And then this map is actually something a little bit different. This map shows the areas where we have approved development unit plans. And you can see each one of the development units, they're a little bit, they don't correspond exactly to the development unit areas, the 9 areas that were on the previous map. But every single area in Eastmark has an approved development unit plan except development unit 1, which is, of course, this area up in here. And so as part of this request, what we're asking is to have approval of a development unit plan here, a modification to the development unit plan here, and then a new submittal here, and then a new submittal here. Okay. So I did want to just talk a little bit about land use groups, because I think this is important to really understanding what we're doing. So again, I noted previously that the land use groups are basically akin to zoning districts. And our community plan creates 9 land use groups. And these land use groups, they identify allowable uses, they're inherently flexible, and our community plan does give a generalized overview of which land use groups can go where, but the development unit plan is the place where we identify which land use groups to allow in a particular development unit. And then once a development unit plan is approved, then we are then able to go to the more detailed level of planning, which is a site plan or a subdivision plat. And that at that point in time, that's when we select which specific land use group we want to apply to the property. And then I'm just going to sort of, and some of this information will come into play as we get further along, but important LUGs are the regional center campus, the village, district, and open space LUGs. I apologize for the delay. It's not advancing. Okay. Now, we thought it would be helpful to give you a visual of what these land use groups really mean. So I'll just go through them very quickly. The open space LUG up at the top, you can see the picture of the orange monster. All of our parks and open space areas, we have used the open space LUG. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you go down below that, you see the civic open space LUG. That LUG also allows open space, but it also allows buildings. So you can see that's a picture of the high school. That we've used the civic space LUG for the high school, the fire station that will be built. They will use that LUG. Then when you get back up to the top, the village LUG, and the 2 pictures below term village LUG are, you can see they're just your basic standard single family detached product pictures Eastmark. This is the type of use that you will see typically in the village LUG, and that's what we have used it for. Then on the next page, okay, I've just got some representations of the district LUG. You can see at the upper left, that's actually a picture of a auto court product that is built in Eastmark, and then right below that, kind of underneath the bashes, is the Green Court projects, and we have properties in Eastmark that are designed around Green Court, and they're alley loaded in the back. And then the one top on the right is the BB Living project. You probably have all seen it at Ray Road. That we use all 3 of those. We use the district LUG for those. The Bashes picture is on there because we also use the district LUG for commercial retail. So the shopping center at Point 22 and Signal Butte, we use the district LUG for the development of the Safeway. This is not a picture of that, but that's what we used. So then just moving on, the general urban LUG, general urban and urban core are intended for a more intense type of development. And so the picture that I'm showing here is the apartment development down on Ray Road, the Premier. That for that project, we used the urban LUG. So you can see kind of the differences between those different groups. And then the last one of note is the regional campus LUG. And all of these pictures represent the type of typical building or use that you would see in the regional campus LUG. And the one at the bottom on the left is the EdgeCore building in Eastmark that you probably recognize. The picture right above it is part of the industrial development that is actually really significant at this point down on Ray Road by the airport. And then up at the top on the right-hand side, kind of the large building is the Niagara water bottling plant that is north of Elliott Road. And then the other pictures down on the bottom, those were just pictures that I just pulled out of our community plan that also are sort of representative of what you could see in the regional campus LUG. And then I also have, if this would, yes, then I also went ahead and it's very hard to get a picture of the Apple building, but both of these pictures represent the Apple building. The picture on the bottom represents a view from the south. You can see the building and some of the infrastructure facilities, the water, I think those are the water cooling towers. And then the fenced in area is the SRP substation that services that building. And then the building, or the picture on the top, is really the view from Elliott Road. And you may or may not know this, but that site is actually depressed. And so the building actually doesn't seem as high as it really is just because of the depression. So it kind of helped to camouflage that building a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to get to the proposed changes. Okay, so this map, first I'm going to talk about the major amendment to the community plan. And this plan identifies the changes and kind of where they affect in terms of the development, where the land pieces are. So the first little box points to development unit 1 and 2. And part of the amendment that we're making to modify the character area descriptions will impact development units 1 and 2. These two modifications are actually going to be the ones that are going to proceed first. So when the planning board holds their meeting in a couple weeks, they're only going to be considering this request. Then if you go down to the second box, there are additional modifications to modify language to describe the character DU5, and then there's also an exhibit, and that affects that area in red. That would be basically coterminous with the DU5 North area. So hopefully that helps you understand what the major amendment to the community actually impacts. Okay, so this is a lot, and I don't expect anybody to read this, but I just wanted to be able to go through these, because what I'm going to go through is the actual changes to the community plan. So this first exhibit, it impacts development unit 1, and I mentioned the character area descriptions, the brief descriptions of what these development units are supposed to be like. So this modification is only applicable to the area that's circled in DU1. And you know, some of these changes actually are non-substantive. We're actually moving sentences around, but not really changing it. But the essence of what this change is that it allows for the development of large-scale employment type of uses as an additional development form on development unit 1 versus more of a mixed use commercial employment office residential development. So it's basically allowing that type of form to occur on development unit 1. Okay, so now I will move on to the changes that impact development unit 2, which is circled on the screen. And again, this is the actual modification language to the character area. And again, these changes, you know, essentially are very similar to the changes in DU1, where we're adding language which allows a development form that it would be equated to the large scale employment development type of pattern. So,
Jill,
yes?
Jill, can I interrupt? Because I think
Yes,
it's important.
absolutely.
It's important to point out that what we're doing is layering on, you know, so there's additional opportunity for employment uses to occur here. We're not changing what's already allowed. So for example, in DU2, we have a significant amount of residential already approved. So the request just says, okay, if we don't build residential, we can build employment or other uses here. So I think it's just important to point out we're not getting rid of any of the uses that we currently have.
Yes, thank you, Karen, for that clarification. So these are the two that I just covered are the things that are moving forward, and these are the only two that are moving forward to the planning board in a couple weeks. Okay. However, we did submit additional changes, and so this one would be the third one in the amendment community plan, and this one covers this area that's circled, basically coterminous with the 5 North area. And these changes are really actually pretty mild. We are deleting the word hospitality, which really is more of a throwback to the time when we thought Gaylord was going to be developing up in this area. So we're just deleting that because it's really not applicable anymore. And then we're just adding a statement that addresses transitions between different types of uses, residential and employment use, and just making sure that transitions are addressed.
Okay,
So
Jill, I'm going to interrupt one more time because what I just said relative to DU2, where we're not changing any of the currently allowed uses. In this portion of DU5 North, we have agreed with the city to eliminate our existing residential along Elliott Road, because that existing residential has been there since the beginning, since 2008. And so in keeping with kind of the evolving nature of the Elliott Road Technology Corridor, we are agreeing to eliminate along that corridor the existing residential uses allowed.
Right. And you know, I'm glad that you brought that up, because historically DU5 actually was anticipating residential in that area. And so that's an important point. Okay, so moving on to this would be the last change that we're proposing in the community plan. And you can see on the right is the existing map, and basically what the crosshatch, not this crosshatched area right here, not this, but this, pertains to an exclusion of no single family detached residential. Okay, so this is the proposed right here, and here you can see the change is this area. We're taking it out of the crosshatch, and we're requesting the ability to do single family. We can already do higher intensity type of residential in this entire area up here, but this area is where we would like the ability to do single family. But also note, as Karen mentioned, it is set back from Elliott Road. Okay. All right. Now moving on to the next sort of piece of the request, and it pertains to the development unit plans. And so this basically lists all 4 of the development unit plans. So let me see here, I think. Okay, so this is, again, the area, the DUP for DU1. We do not have a DUP plan for this area, so this is really the first time we've submitted one. And then moving on, the second request is the modification to the existing unit plan that was approved. I think it was approved about a year and a half ago. And then the next one is the DU5 North area. And again, there is an approved development unit plan on this area. It is actually part of this larger area that we call DU56 South. This is the only undeveloped area left of this area. This notched out area basically is the existing edge core development that exists today. So this area would address on an undeveloped area. Okay. And then lastly, DU6 South. You can see it on the screen. This area was originally part of DU6 North. It was originally came in as part of the original request from First Solar, where they were planning to build 4 1.3 million square foot buildings. And obviously they only built 1, but all of that would have been down here. So those are the 4 independent development unit plans. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of DU1, again, I addressed as part of the community plan amendment that what we are proposing for development unit 1 is that this area, and it's about 130 acres, is that it could take 2 forms of development. It could be developed consistently with a scenario 1 that's listed on the screen, which is predominantly employment in nature with a development pattern that includes large scale buildings, campus type development, or it could develop like is stated under scenario 2, which would be a mix of uses. Could include commercial retail, it could be office, it could be residential, higher density residential. So that is what we are proposing that the character of D1 be. So to just show you how this works, the development unit plans that we have created, they consist of about 150 pages, and the vast majority of them, they're all based very similar, and a lot of the information is the same. For example, our plant list, the same every development unit plan that we've done. So really the key part of the development unit plan is what land use groups are we going to propose. So I'm going to just go through these really quickly. So this is, again, the DU1 area, and this is the district lug. So if you recall from the images that I showed you previously, we're saying you could do district lug on the whole thing, okay? Then just go into the next one, campus lug. This is the one that allows for the large scale employment. This one, you know, again, campus lug on the whole thing. General urban, we're not saying it on the whole thing, but the concept here is that it would go along the major perimeter roads. And then the same thing with the urban core land use group, okay? And then we always put open space and civic, but I'm not showing you those because it's not really relevant to this discussion. It's not really that important because you can do open space anywhere if we plan it. And then we do address circulation. So you can see here we're acknowledging the perimeter roads, Elliott Road, Ellsworth Road, and Eastmark Parkway. And then just there's a caveat here that Mesquite Street, if you notice there's a little star on there. And basically what we're saying is that if a user were to come in and purchase all of DU or a portion of DU2 and they didn't need or want that connector road, then it would be optional. They wouldn't necessarily need to include it. I mean, if you think of Apple, it's a large facility. They have service roads and driveways that, that access the facility. There's not a road circulation system that goes through that property. So if you think about it that way, okay. And then there's multiple other exhibits that are included in each development unit plan. And I just pulled these two just to give you a little bit of a flavor. There's multiple exhibits that address tree themes, signage, lighting, and other things like that. And when you go to the documents, you can see all those. But they're not necessarily pertaining to land use. But I just wanted you to know that these types of exhibits are also in there. Okay, development unit 2. So development unit 2, as I mentioned, the development unit plan for DU2 has been approved. And it's been approved consistent with, if you look on the screen, scenario 2, which is a residential in nature with transitions. So actually, if you look at the little graphic diagram that I've imposed on the top of it, that's basically what was in the approved development plan. So the change that we're making is that we're allowing scenario 1 to occur, which again, consistent with what I just described in development unit 1, is to allow for a predominantly employment type of development form to occur on the entirety of development unit 2. So that is, it's a big document and it's really actually a pretty simple change. So then getting to the land use groups, these are approved. Okay, so you can see the location of the village log, again, which would be like the single family right here, but not here. And then with district, it's allowed in this area here. So those are already approved. The general urban and the urban core log, these are again the existing approved location. And so here's the change that occurs in development unit 2. It has to do with the land use or the regional campus land use group. And if you look at the graphic on the left, you can see the 2 little squares at the corners of the streets along Ellsworth. Those are the only places where you can do regional campus today. So we're proposing that you be able to do it on the entire property, okay? So that really is a very short and sweet summary of what we're proposing for development unit plan 2. And then in addition, the circulation plan sort of mirrors what we did in DU1, where if you had a large user come in and take a larger area, that these streets and connections would be optional, depending on what they were proposing. So that's development 2. Okay, now development unit, the DUP for DU5 North. I think this is probably the one, as well as the DU6 South, that is probably creating the most interest. So this is the area, with the area circled on the map. I think you're all pretty familiar with it by this point in the presentation. And you can see the little description up there. But what I wanted to go through with you is these land use groups. And I'm sorry, I've got these chat boxes at the bottom, so I can't really see these titles here on the exhibit. But these 2 exhibits are reflecting existing land use groups that are approved today. And again, you can see regional campus is allowed on the whole thing today, as is the retreat lug. And I didn't talk about the retreat lug, but that's a lug we don't really use that much. It was intended to apply to Gaylord, and it really focused heavily on hospitality uses. We don't really use it, but we went ahead and put it on here in case they showed back up, and it's really not that significant. Okay, moving on. All right, so general urban and urban core. These, again, are existing locations of lugs in this development unit plan. We're not proposing any changes to these. And again, you know, hearkening back to the pictures of the land use groups, these are the ones that we would, you know, typically use for the higher density multifamily. Okay. All right, so here's the next 2 slides really illustrate the change. So I had to go back into a graphic that didn't necessarily correspond to it, but the graphic on the left is the approved map from the DUP that has already been approved, and you can see that the village lug is only approved in this area, basically south of what would be the disc golf linear open space area. And so then this area that is marked in here that goes around EdgeCore, that's basically the area we're talking about, which, as you can see over here, is we've added the map that is asking for village lug. So it doesn't go all the way up to Elliott Road, but it basically goes around the EdgeCore facility. So that's the area where we're proposing to add this land use opportunity to this area, in addition to the ones that are already approved. And then the same thing with district. And this one, there's a little bit of a change, because you can see over here by Eastmark Parkway and Elliott Road, the kind of funny shaped area, that is approved today for the district lug. And so we're actually changing, we're kind of, I guess maybe you could think about it as like a tube of toothpaste. We're kind of shifting some of this that would have been over here over to the area that surrounds the EdgeCore facility. Okay. And then I just put in the circulation plan just to sort of recognize the existing circulation system that has been approved. Okay. And then on to the last one, the development unit plan for 6 South. Okay. So this one is part of DU6 North. It only allows the regional campus, which is the employment, large scale employment use. And we haven't had anything happening here. And we really think it's appropriate to sort of square this off here, kind of continue the existing sort of boundary of the residential that's already formed there. So we wanted to create the opportunity to do residential in this area as well. So just sort of moving on to the maps, which again is the important thing. And again, I apologize for how slowly this works. And again, I'm using maps from an old exhibit, but this is the apple plant is at Elliott Road's here. Apple is about right here. And this area right here corresponds to the DU6 South area. And so this area is entirely allows the regional campus. Now, if you look over here, in this submittal that we made, we propose that it be smaller. We're actually going to take it back. We're going to keep it as is. We don't want to make any changes to that, to the way it is. So we made that change after we decided to make that change after we made the submittal. But we have many opportunities to change things because we haven't received comments back from the city. And then these two maps, again, show the major change that's going on. You can see the one on the right shows the district lug in this area, and then the one on the one on the left, and then the one on the right shows the area that we want to be able to put the village lug. So that, by putting those two land use groups, it would give us the opportunity to develop those areas with residential. And then this exhibit really shows the circulation. And so there have been a couple questions about the circulation. So I'll just cover this really briefly. So this arrow, or, this arrow, there's always conceptual, but this is actually an existing road. It's Park Jewel. You may or may not be familiar with it, but it exists today. And then it kind of ends right here in a little cul-de-sac. But this road could actually go through. And then this road over here, is demonstrating that, you could extend this road, Benton, I think it's called Benton Court South, or Benton Parkway South. You could extend that north. And then this road up here is a road that could potentially, you have to get into this area somehow, no matter what use you put here. This would likely be the location for a road that would provide access here. I don't think that this road would continue on. It could likely go up here, but we don't really know what is happening here. So until we know what the uses are that are going to be here, we really don't know what the circulation pattern is going to be in that area. And then this exhibit also shows the streets as well. And I did notice when we did this presentation that we didn't put the open space area that is supposed to connect over here. So we'll make that change when we get our comments from the city and resubmit it. And then just again to speak to the disc golf, I think I covered this in the beginning, but the 18-hole disc golf just started construction. Again, it'll be completed by the end of the year, beginning of next year. And that arrow I do have another slide that I'm going to show you here in a second, but this arrow generally is pointing to what would be the end of the construction of the 18 holes. So it starts all the way at Eastmark Parkway, and then it winds around to that point. So the fencing that we have placed up on the property just goes around that area. And that's what we're constructing right now. We're calling it phase 1. And then we're calling phase 2, this area that Eric is pointing to. And again, that's part of the linear open space area. And those plans for what we will specifically do in that area, we will do that planning when we plan the adjacent uses in DU6 South. We feel like we can do a better job of planning those areas once we know really how access is going to occur in those areas, and what kinds of amenities and drainage we're going to need for that area. So, but it will be open space, and I know that there were a lot of concerns about what was happening up in that area. So just wanted to assure everyone that will connect to the commercial. And then this aerial photo really just shows the one on top kind of shows where the boundary is, or the ending is, excuse me, if you will, for the disc golf. And then the one on the bottom really is sort of pointing to what will be the phase 2 area. So my last slide, and it's almost taken 30 minutes, but I wanted to just make sure that we updated everyone on the hearing schedule, because it's a little bit different from what was in the letter. So the dates that are on the screen here really articulate what's happening. So the major amendment, only the major amendment to the community plan for DU1 and DU2 are going forward in accordance with the schedule, which is the planning board will consider it on January 27th. And then it sort of in the normal course, it just automatically goes cases that the planning board hears, they just automatically go to the council about a month later. So this is just in accordance with their normal schedule. And then you can see that it would get to council by March 1st. And then the DUPs for 1 and 2 would be able to be heard by the planning board, which would then occur on March 24th. And then the rest of the major amendment to the community plan that impacts that DU5 North area, that would go through the schedule to the planning board and to the city council, but I don't have those dates right now. But we have to notify everyone, so you would get a letter as to when that would occur. And then the same is true of the DUP for 5 North and DU6 South. I don't have specific dates for those. So I am at my end. I think we're at the point where we can we can hopefully answer some of the questions. And there were many questions that were coming through on the chat. So Christine, I don't know how you want to
Yeah,
go through
so
them.
I've compiled the questions, and I'll kind of go through them, and we can answer questions kind of in groups. And then I'm going to, do my best to kind of summarize these, but we'll try to catch everything here. And then if I miss anything, we'll make sure to come back to it. Okay, so.
And then Christine, could Eric also unmute himself? Because I'm hoping that Eric can.
I'm here.
Help with things too.
Yeah, so the first question was about the data center employment. They say, how does the data center offer major employment when there's less than 3 vehicles in the parking lot?
I don't know, Karen, do you want to answer? Are you talking about the, does this question referring to the EdgeCore?
I think this is referring to EdgeCore, yeah.
Yeah,
Keeping in mind the EdgeCore, that's only the first building of their facility. I don't know that they have anything that has actually come to fruition for an occupier of the building yet, i.e. the reason there isn't any vehicles in the parking lot. That being said, typically data centers do not have a huge employment in the operations side, but they create employment from a construction standpoint in the very beginning, as well as the auxiliary functions for all of the equipment that goes into their buildings. So there has been an influx in the city of Mesa, not necessarily at Eastmark specific, of those auxiliary uses and the supply chain.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, while the operation of the data center proper doesn't generate significant employment, but there's constant upgrades, just keeping up with technology going in and out of the data centers. So there's a lot of construction, that kind of construction IT upgrades on an ongoing basis.
Okay, Christina, do you want to move to the next one?
Okay, there was a question about the timeline of the development. So it says that it was the development of commercial would take until 2040, and they're asking what the rationale for amending the zoning when there's 25 years to build out on the plan. And will these amendments enable Eastmark to meet the goal of creating 50,000 jobs?
Yeah, okay, so that, and Karen, you can weigh in on this as well, but my recollection of a 2040 date was that it was the idea that the development of properties, it can take a long time, and that there can be different generations of development, and that the first generation of development can take on a particular form, and then the second generation of that development can take on another form. And so the idea was that this development is going to go on and change and evolve really even beyond 2040 because of this sort of the generational perspective of looking at it, and the fact that we know development and redevelopment is going to occur. I mean, we see it happening all over the Phoenix metro area. And so the idea was that what you see in the first generation may not necessarily be what is there in 40 years. Karen, I don't know if you want to add on to that concept.
That's well said. And when we were, first doing the visioning for Eastmark, we assumed that in that timeline, there was at least one and possibly multiple economic downturns. Of course, in 2008, when we were doing the entitlement, we didn't realize that it was around that downturn was around the corner, but we anticipated that would happen, and therefore we were looking out that many years. But to Jill's point, as any city or any community, things are developed and then redeveloped, and we would fully anticipate that 3 years out, there's going to be things at Eastmark that's going to be redeveloped over time as needs and markets and technologies change.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions about the amount of retail, commercial restaurants and so forth, as far as like, for example, there's one that talks about we're at approximately 40% of our house capacity. What's the capacity percentage for commercial? I don't know if that's a the way to measure it, but there's quite a few questions about we've heard a lot about housing development and large scale employment, but many of us are concerned about retail and restaurants.
Is the question getting at the concern that we're taking away those opportunities?
And where is that planned and that kind of stuff?
Eric, do you want to take that one?
I can try. I mean, we are not commercial retail developers ourselves, and so we typically rely on the experts in the field to come to us with opportunities. Obviously, everyone knows, because we're having this meeting virtually, the COVID environment has kind of stymied the commercial retail, restaurant, entertainment industry, and so the desire for creating those places is a lot smaller today than it was even a year and a half ago. That being said, we're not taking away the ability for that to be put at Eastmark. We're simply adding additional opportunities for other uses in some of the same areas. Doesn't mean that we're going to reduce the amount that we can support with this community. And that's an important thing to cover. We had a commercial retail market study done, and Jill, remind me, was this in 2018, 2019, I think is when we did that?
It was 2018.
And we determined that the area around us, based on that market study, could only support to the tune of 60 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Worth of commercial retail. What we're talking about on this property is close to 600 acres of land that's remaining that is undeveloped. And we would never see 600 acres of commercial retail, restaurant, or entertainment. We are preserving area at Ellsworth and Ray, which is one of the locations that we have been pushing to get some of that commercial retail. We have our Safeway Center is in addition to that. And there are pocket areas all throughout that have been set aside, even in the entitlements. I believe it's DU34 North's DUP has a couple of areas that have been set aside. It's just a matter of time. And like I said in the beginning, we are not the commercial developers. We will sell the property to a commercial retail developer who will then come in and make that happen. And we're always looking for new opportunities for them to come in and do that.
And
go ahead, Karen.
As I said earlier, we are really, we respond to the market, right? And our market, all of us, everybody on the phone, all of us is in such upheaval now because COVID. Nobody knows what the future of office is going to look like with any certainty, future of retail, future of restaurants. Hopefully we get back to restaurants soon, all of us. But it's just very uncertain. And to Eric's point, we've got an awful lot of commercial availability at Eastmark. And should those markets come back, we've got a home for them. We've got a place for them. So we're not precluding those opportunities. It's just, you know, nobody's going to come build a new restaurant or a new shopping center if people aren't going to come there to shop. But if there's a market for it, we want them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're prepared for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we've really been working with the commercial broker community since day one about those type of development opportunities. And again, you know, none of us are experts on commercial development, which is, you know, a very, you know, specialized field. But I think one of the things that, you know, we sort of, that the site sort of has going against it is that it doesn't have a complete radius around it. It's, you know, you've got the airport and you've got the freeway that really doesn't generate people because of the way we're set. So we're sort of at the edge of a trade area. So I think that has also made it a little bit challenging. But yeah, we would love to see some commercial development just as bad as everyone else.
Yeah, and I, you know, just as a kind of a personal note, going back, you know, to 2006, 7, 8, and Jill will share this as well. I mean, we were so excited, as was city council, city staff, and quite frankly, the voters of the city of Mesa, who overwhelmingly approved the Gaylord project. And then when that evaporated because of forces beyond our control, it was very disappointing. You know, so you pick yourself up, you keep going. And then again, when Apple came along, obviously that was very exciting. Very fortunate for us to be able to, you know, turn the first solar situation into something positive. And then from that, see the Elliott Road Tech Corridor take off. So believe us, when we say we're here to respond to the market, we can't make the market. We can't make restaurateurs come out and build something that there's no market for. But we'd like to see them, and we're ready for them should they come to fruition. But in the meantime, we're just trying to position Eastmark to develop in the best possible way and bring employment opportunities and you know, create an economic engine that's beneficial to the residents, to the area, to the city of Mesa. So that's really what's underlying these requests, to give us that flexibility, further flexibility to respond to the marketplace.
Okay.
And we wouldn't be able to have the community that we have today had we not had the flexibility of these entitlements.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Christina?
We have a lot of concerns about Benton Park and Park Jewel going through. And I think there's a little bit of confusion on the disc golf. So there was a question about a green road, and I wanted to see if we could go back to that. I don't think it was a green road. I think that was the disc golf course. Oh, okay. So maybe it was.
That green arrow is Benton Park. It's actually not quite right where that is on the exhibit, but you know, Benton Park actually is this street right here. The one thing that we should note with both of these streets is that what the DUP allows us to do is give us the opportunity to have those connections in the event that there's a need for those connections to the area to the north. This doesn't say that we are definitely doing those connections. There's a lot of planning that needs to go into determining where those streets go. I will note that we have always intended both of these streets to continue to the north. They were specifically designed in the locations that they are with the open spaces that are adjacent to them so that we could allow for that road to continue through in the event that there was a need to get the connections. That was a push from not just our planning side, but also the city of Mesa planning with the relation to this Safeway Center and wanting to have connectivity through this whole area.
Eric, can you touch on the park? There's a lot of concern about the park being removed if the road goes through.
are we talking about actual Benton Park?
I think
It
they're
is-
talking about it sounds like they're talking about the playground.
Yeah, so the playground doesn't get affected by that road going through. That will still remain a park.
Are you talking about the buffer area? That
No, they're
area that has the
talking,
park here?
if they're talking about this park right here that's behind the Safeway Center, it's an
Right.
existing park
Relativity
today
Point
and has
Park, it says.
it has playground equipment and so on in it. That park will not go away.
If you're able to go to slide 12, I believe it shows that.
I'm not sure which slide is slide 12, but
Keep going. Yeah, keep going. It's just a couple after our timeline. Sorry. Keep going about, there you go. Oops, there you go.
no, this one?
That one right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this area right here, that park is not going anywhere.
So Christine, were there other comments about the access road on the north side of, anything
I don't
specific about
No,
that
the
one?
big concerns are Benton Park and Park Jewel. Most people don't want Benton Park to go through. They think the one access from Signal Butte and Park Jewel is enough. So
Okay,
noted that that's a concern for sure.
And again, Benton Park will be planned appropriately with whatever use is adjacent. So to the point that Jill had made earlier about the flexibility, and we don't know what's happening in DU6 South. Let me get to a DUP exhibit that shows that. Make it easy to. So if we get an employment use in this area as it's slated to be today, there is no reason for either of those streets to connect through. There would only need to be access off of Signal Butte for that particular parcel, and there would be no connection to the neighborhoods. If we build new residential in this area to the north, it absolutely makes sense to have connections from Park Jewel and Benton. If we have retail uses, there's the likelihood that one of these streets needs to connect in so that we have that connectivity. It'll all just depend on the planning. And the DUP doesn't get us to that level of planning. It's the site plan or pre-plat that gets us to that level of planning, which is just another layer in our entitlement.
All right. So the next I have what's being planned at Ellsworth and Ray was one of the questions. I don't think we really answered that, but
yeah, Eric, do you want to go over that, Ellsworth and Ray area?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure that it applies to this
Yeah,
context, but Ellsworth and Ray is a 60-acre mixed-use development. We're trying to entice, just like we've always been trying to do, to get commercial developers to come in and build. So we're putting in some roadways today to kind of draw that interest to it. Outside of that, we don't know what will be there. Again, we're not commercial developers ourselves. We are looking to sell the property to somebody who is a commercial developer and has that expertise and will bring us something that is commercial, retail, office, you name it, whatever we can get them to create a special place.
and then next question is in regarding to the clubhouse community amenities in the neighborhood, and if we're adding more homes, how do we handle capacity in those areas?
So let's just be clear that we're not adding any additional units of residential than we are already allowed to have. And as we have stated many, many times before, there are multiple different types of amenities for the community. We always build neighborhood parks with all of our residential neighborhoods. And we have no plans to build an additional amenity in the future related to a facility similar to the Mark and the pool.
Eric, you said we're not going to build any more than we're currently allowed. In fact, we're going to be building far less than we're currently allowed.
Correct. I just want to make sure that the question was very targeted to adding residential, and we're not. We're within the current entitlement that we are allowed to build.
Correct.
Okay, and then kind of in the same area as that, I guess, is, and I think it has the same question, so if it does, then you can just say that, Eric, but they're asking about where are the kids going to go to school, that the kids are already, it says, where will the kids go to school in the Gilbert School District? Canyon Rim in the zoned elementary school already has close to 900 students. I don't know if you know of Gilbert's plans for schooling or how that goes.
I don't know any of Gilbert's plans for additional schools, but Eastmark does fall within Gilbert and Queen Creek school districts, which are both open enrollment, and students have the opportunity to go to whichever school they wish. We have also provided the opportunities with charter schools, and there are several charter schools in the surrounding area. We don't control what the school district does, and I'm sure that the Gilbert district has something in their plans to address capacity issues that they need to address.
Okay, and there's a comment from Cedric. We were kind of confused about the first comment that was made, but I think he clarified it. Let me find it really quick.
Christina, while you're looking for that, I did notice that there was a couple comments about notification, and so I thought I'd go ahead and take the opportunity to go ahead and answer that while you're looking. But we notified residents in compliance with what we're required to in our community plan, which is every property owner within 750 feet of the affected area. So if you take the area that basically coincides with DU1 and DU2 and DU6 South and DU5 North, and I even went up all the way up to Elliott and Signal Butte, drew a 750-foot line around that area, and that's the area that was notified. That it was over 650 letters went out, which is pretty significant. The city of Mesa, they require more notice than typical, which is in most other jurisdictions it's 300 feet. So that's what the boundary was. It was 750 feet.
Yeah, that was the question. We had a few of those. So if we do have people that were not notified and they believe that they were in that area, is there a way that they can, do they need to, if they're renters, it wouldn't send out to them, right? It would send to owners.
It showed the list goes to property owners that own property in accordance with the Maricopa County Recorder's Office. Anything like this, there's always letters that come back. There's always, as hard as you try to do your best, there's people buying houses, there's, information that hasn't made it over to the county website. So we do the best we can based on the available information. But if somebody didn't get notified and they want to be notified, they can contact me and I'll put them on the list.
Okay, there was a question I think we just need to clarify. They're asking what's going to be built in DU1 and DU2, but I think we just need to clarify that it's not.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't know.
Yeah, we
I
don't
think
know.
that we're just clarifying that these are planned areas, and these are just options of what can go in there is what this is doing. And I think that's just what we need to clarify there.
Right.
It's currently vacant land, and we're trying to make it easier and more flexible for us to be able to develop something in those areas.
Right, and let's not forget our goal here is, you know, supporting the vision of the Elliott Road Tech Corridor. And so these changes, much like what we're doing in DU1, also in DU5, we're removing the residential off of that corridor. And so these changes really help us, help the city in the area realize the vision for the Elliott Road Tech Corridor.
Okay. The next question revolved, and this was a few times came up as well, the continuation of the Great Park. There were
Yeah, Eric,
concerns
do you
about,
want to?
yeah.
Eric, do you want to cover that one?
Sure. I mean, our development agreement obligates us to develop 90 acres of Great Park. We have plus or minus 40 built to date, with another plus or minus 30 that is planned within the next couple of years, adjacent to our DU34 North area. Outside of that, we don't have planned design yet, but we are still, per the development agreement, obligated to deliver 90 acres. We'll be at 70 by that point, so there's another 20 acres to be planned and placed somewhere in the area that is undeveloped.
Jill, there's a request to go back, or Eric, I guess you're controlling it. Can you go back to the disc golf course map just so people can see where that's at?
That one?
Yeah. There's
Yeah, so
questions on, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, for clarification, the 18 holes of disc golf, there are 9 holes here and 9 holes here. That is phase 1 of this linear park. Ultimately, this linear park will connect all the way from Eastmark Parkway over to the Safeway Shopping Center.
And there's questions about timeline on phase 2.
Wish I could say more definitive, but it's relative to whatever develops in the area in DU6 South. We need to understand what is going to go in that area before we can define what needs to sit in this area here.
But it's safe to say that the sooner we know what's going into DU6 South, the sooner that phase 2 will be developed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, there was a lot of questions about higher densities. There was a lot of people asking, what does higher densities mean? Assuming that there's a lot of comments, we don't want more apartments. What other options are there in higher densities than apartments? Can we give some more clarification on higher densities that aren't apartments?
Condos,
Townhomes.
townhomes.
Yeah, I mean, with the pictures that we showed of in the district, and I don't know if you can scroll back to that, to those pictures. I mean, we would typically put the higher density stuff in the general urban and the urban core. So these are typical densities that you would see in the district log, and then of course the general urban log on the bottom picture that equates to the premier. I think, I mean, it's kind of tough to get into a discussion on density, but that's generally a 3-story apartment complex. I don't know if there's any 4-story elements to that.
There can be, Jill, and you know, I think it is also important to note that typically where you have these higher densities, you do draw more opportunity for retail and commercial uses. They tend to flock together.
The the two pictures of homes on the left of the screen, we call those, we really characterize those, we call them mid-density type of resident. Those products in particular they're single family detached. They're just on different types of layouts. Like I pointed out that the green courts, they're alley loaded front onto green space areas, but the lots that they're on are actually very, very small. The picture of the BB Living is a sort of another example. That's just a 2-story product, but that's, I guess you could call it like a row home. There's probably 8 units in that picture there. And but it's not, it doesn't have the same sort of feel as you would, as like a typical garden apartment. And we would, back to the village lug though, I think it's pretty clear that the village lug is, you know, really more of a traditional single family type of form. Christine, are there comments about that the high density is not supported, the higher density residential, the apartments?
Yeah, well, it was just saying there was a few that said we don't want more apartments.
Okay. Were there any comments about the residential, the single family residential?
Well, yeah.
In that north area?
Well, they're not precise, but I think it's, yeah, there's a lot of comments to go through, but so there's a question about an Eastmark surcharge. The question is, what impact do these changes have on the taxes the current homeowners are paying to support the development? Will the Eastmark tax surcharge take longer to be removed because fewer homes are being planned?
So
I'm assuming the surcharge that they're referring to is the CFD.
Mm-hmm. I would think so.
And the CFD doesn't have any effect relative to the number of units. Outside of that, I don't know that there's much else we can comment on that. It's,
I don't think it would affect the CFD. I don't think we're gonna put any more. I mean, it is what it is. So I don't think it affects it.
there's no additional burden on individual units relative to the CFD.
Right.
Okay. And if we didn't answer that, Gwen, you can clarify. So back to your question that you had, Jill, I have some clarification. So lots of people saying yes, correct, no apartments. And I've got one from KDP, village lug is fine, district lug is not fine on DU5 North. The next one I have is the library timing and where it's going in. So you could probably show them on that overall map, Eric.
Sure. Timing wise, I can't answer that question. We are not the ones that are building that library. It's the city of Mesa. They have bonds for that, and I'm not sure where it sits in their timeline. Not sure if we have a good map to, this is probably the best one. We did transfer property ownership of the area that was at one point in time going to be the fire station for city of Mesa, adjacent to Basis and the Great Park. That is the location that has been set aside, and the city is the owner of that piece of property. And just so everyone understands, the new fire station is located somewhere over here.
Mm-hmm.
And that library, as I understand, the citywide, there's only 6 libraries. This will be one of 6 libraries in the entire city. So for the city to commit to doing it here is a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm. And in our conversations with the city staff, we have, because we have that on our radar, so we ask them all the time when that is planning to be happening, and they don't have a schedule at this point for it. And Tom, I don't know if I know Tom is in the meeting, and if he has anything other than that that he wants to add, feel free.
I'm trying to find a schedule on it. I don't know the schedule for the library, no.
Okay.
Okay. So another clarification, Eric, on the disc golf course, asking if the proposed amendment that we are proposing, is that causing the delayed start of phase 2 of the disc golf?
No, it is not causing the delay. It's actually helping us figure out what we're going to do in that area adjacent so that we can get to a plan that's better and easier and hopefully faster.
And will the disc golf course have walking paths as well?
Yes.
And
there will be multi-use paths all the way through.
And then some exercise stations and all kinds of cool stuff. Who handles the planning for the roads and speed crosswalks as we grow? With a question mark.
Yeah, Eric, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Through the design and planning of our neighborhoods, we design and plan our roads with the help of our expert consultants who are professionals at determining where and when a road needs to be, how wide it needs to be, and so on, along with collaboration with the city. They are all public streets, and through our plan reviews, the city transportation department gives us requirements that we need to meet, and we do warrant analysis on traffic signals. So,
and in addition to that, I can also say that the city is proposing crosswalks, flashing beacons. We've got one going in with phase 1 of the disc golf course on Everton Terrace, and we've got more proposed as well with different developments as we go.
And Christina, do you want to point out Everton Terrace on the map? Just
Eric, and yeah. The crossing is actually right there, just south of Radix, Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, to Eric's point, it's just, if we go back to our original entitlements where we had 15,000 residential units and 20 million square feet of commercial, our original master studies had to assume that full build out. And the way our entitlements work is as we go through each development unit and refine those plans, all of those master infrastructure documents are reviewed, revised, updated. And given that we're not going to hit our 15,000 residential units, and right now the 20 million square feet of commercial, and the type of commercial matters too. But the point is, the closer we get to the point of developing a particular site is when we refine those plans to make sure that the infrastructure that's built is adequate to serve those particular uses in those locations.
And that is water, sewer, drainage, transportation, signal locations, dry utilities, all of those things.
Jill, we're after 7 o'clock, and I know, I'll stay all night if I need to. But I think just minding the clock and respectful of everybody's time, maybe just we should talk about logistics to the extent anybody did not get their question answered. I think everybody on the call has Jill's, here, Jill, I'm throwing you under the bus. Everybody's got Jill's email and telephone number, and to the extent she's not able to answer a question, anybody on the Eastmark team can help find the answer to your questions. We truly believe what we're doing is, of benefit to the entire Eastmark community. It's a benefit to the city of Mesa and the Elliott Road Tech Corridor. And yet we want to answer and address anybody's issues and concerns. And I know going into tonight, one of the biggest concerns that we had heard related to the Great Park the disc golf that everybody was anticipating. And so hopefully this has answered questions and alleviated some fears that might not be happening. But it is, and Eastmark is committed to building all of that green space that you see on the map today. We've made that commitment to the city, and we're going to build it. We've also made the commitment to the city that we're going to pull residential off of Elliott Road as part of this application. And in return for that, the city has indicated its willingness to support us. And Tom, I know you're still on there, and if I have misrepresented the city's position, please speak up now. But we are committed to removing residential so that the vision for the Elliott Road Tech Corridor can proceed forward.
And then, Eric, I don't know if you can.
I'll see what I can do here. I'm gonna get to the last slide so that I can put it where it's readable.
Yeah, because what we're trying to do is type in my email address in case there's people on that didn't get the letter and don't have it. Do you know what it is, Eric?
Yeah.
jhaggart@dmbinc.com.
I don't want to butcher your spelling.
Very good.
Is it DMB Associates still?
DMB Inc. DMBinc.com.
Inc.
So yeah, so if anyone wants to get a hold of me, you can send me an email. If you want to have a conversation, I'm happy to call and talk to you personally as well.
And is Tom still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Tom, I just want to make sure I didn't misrepresent anything.
Right now, we're under discussions for the public hearing for Development Unit 1 and 2 for those land use allocations. And yeah, we're still under the review of the different land use discussions as you described for Development Units 5 and 6.
Very good.
We do have a concern that the requirements of a submission is that we must know when the construction will begin or what the phases will be, but this is not that kind of a submission. So can we just clarify that so that people know that this is not a submission of an actual, it's a zoning case. So I know it's confusing.
Yeah, it's that I think maybe what you're saying is that we're the way our entitlements are set up, and what we were trying to convey is that there's different levels of planning that go on in our process. And the requirement of development unit plan is not a typical requirement that you'll see in any other development. It is unique to Eastmark. And the intent was to take the community plan, which is a regulation, and provide a little bit more sort of meat on the bones about what is going to happen in an area, but it's not a specific proposal. The specific proposal, the specific land uses will come in when we do a subdivision plat or a site plan. And we're not proposing any of that right now. We're just trying to set the stage by allowing or making the changes to have the types of land groups that we need to allow for a variety of uses that otherwise are not allowed. So I don't know if that addresses that comment. Christine, do you think it does?
Good enough for now, I think.
And just to add to that, Jill, I think it's important for us to note that when we go to construct something, we have to get permits. And like you said, there's a series of steps that we go through. This is the first step in getting us to where we can submit a more defined plan, which would either be a site plan or a pre-plat. Once we have that, that goes through a process. Then we submit construction drawings that go through a process to be able to pull a permit. And then we go and we construct and we get the permits and we have inspections through the city. So there's a multi-step process that happens. before you see what actually is coming out of the ground.
So, Dean, I have a question for you. All the comments that and questions that came through the chat, do you have a record of those?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have the whole chat box open, so we can save that as well.
Okay, all right, very good. Because I'll make sure that I include all that information in our citizen participation report, because we're required as part of the process, report back to the city all the comments and questions that were raised during our citizen participation process. So all of this go in the report, in addition to anything that you might send directly to the city, which I think the city has received a few emails with, you know, some pretty good comments and questions, some of which I have been asked tonight. So I think unless Christine, you have a additional thing that we really haven't addressed.
I don't think I have any more. I was just taking a last run through them to make sure that there's not any more, but if anybody has any more concerns, that any questions that haven't been answered,
they can contact me directly.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, then I think at this point, we can sign off. I wanted to again express gratitude to everyone for taking time from your busy schedules to learn about our project. We like this project. We like talking about it. And we appreciate your and your concern, really, quite frankly. And so we really do appreciate your very thoughtful comments and questions. So with that, I hope to hear from some of you. You've got my email, and my phone number is also in the letter that I sent as well. So thank you very much.